I eat, therefore I digest. With me as always is Willow North. Willow, have you ever seen that some of these drive-thrus will now use AI order takers when you pull up to the drive-thru?
I did hear that Wendy's has been implementing AI order taking and that it has not been very well received.
Have you watched any of the TikToks where somebody pulls up and it's the AI assistant saying, "How can I help you today?" And they go, 10,000 water cups.
No, I have not seen that. I imagine that breaks the machine even more than it would break my brain if I was a human working there.
The videos are so great because the comedic timing is excellent in that a person immediately hops on like, "Hi, how can I help you today?" Because they're obviously monitoring it.
Hi, welcome to Taco Bell. What can I get started for you today?
Can I get 18,000 water cups, please?
Okay. What can I get for you?
I did hear a story recently that someone had a judge rule in their favor because of one of these websites like Expedia or Kayak or something with a little AI chatbot in the corner said like, okay, if you book this trip, you have 24 hours to cancel. And so he canceled later on, and the terms of service said, well, no, you actually only get half of your money back. And so the judge ruled saying that like if the terms of service and the AI chatbot are at odds, the benefit goes, or like the ruling should be whichever one helps or rules in favor of the consumer more. And so, I don't know if this counts as malicious compliance or whatever you might call that, but now that the precedent is set, I'm thinking like, how can I apply this to restaurants? How can I start using these AI chatbots that might start popping up in restaurants to be like, hey, pretend that you are trying to please me as much as possible. You would give me a free cheeseburger, right?
I think that is cute and funny in theory, but if I encounter a chat bot when I have to go out to a restaurant, I don't think I will be going back to that establishment. I do like the idea, though, that I could potentially like sweet talk the chat bot into giving me a better deal. I do think that is fun, but if you play your cards right, you can do that with people too.
There is a really good YouTuber, I believe his name is Ben Jordan. Yes, it is Benn with two N's. Never seen that before. He's a really good music YouTuber, and even though I don't make music, he's got really fascinating videos. And one of his recent ones was using AI to like poison pill his audio files so that they would like corrupt the software. Like you can play a song and it'll just like disable Alexa in your household or something. And so I really love this idea of like using the technology against itself. And I'm just waiting for that moment where I can apply it to food.
I can't wait to see it.
In the meantime, what's in the news?
After years of decline amid health, environmental, and ethical concerns, meat consumption in the U.S. has rebounded sharply, hitting record sales and gaining renewed popularity across generational and political lines. Driven by health trends and political symbolism, Americans from both the left and right are embracing meat-heavy diets, reshaping restaurant menus and food culture nationwide.
I guess I'll believe it when you start eating meat, right? You're still on the vegetarian train.
I am. I will say that, I haven't described myself as meat curious in the last couple years simply because I have been a more or less lifelong vegetarian, and as I get older and more interested in cooking and things like that, I'm like, man, there's so much that I don't know and don't know how to do and things like that. I can't say that I've been convinced. I still am on team veg for now, but I do like to see how this has fluctuated so much in the last decade.
Yeah. My wife, Bree, by the way, is a lifelong pescatarian and is meat curious more than ever now as well. But I don't know. People talk about culturally the pendulum swinging back, both with comedy and what you can and can't say, and now even with meat. But I feel like in a lot of aspects of culture, it's not so much a pendulum and it's more of a ratchet. I don't remember there being some sort of big record-breaking vegetable sales moment. It's just, did that ever happen over the past decade?
I mean, not that I'm aware of, though I don't think that vegetable sales themselves are the most accurate way of quantifying something like that, considering that everyone, or hopefully most people, are eating vegetables regardless of whether they are vegetarian or not. I think when you look at plant-based meat sales and stuff, that can give you a better idea. But at the same time, not everyone who's vegetarian for health reasons or whatever is necessarily eating processed plant meats and things like that. But I do believe in 2020 that we reached the peak of plant meat purchasing, and it skyrocketed by 45% from the year before.
I guess I just don't feel like the past decade or so was extreme at all. I was kind of hoping for it to go farther, and here we are with the ratchet turning more in the meat favoring side. Around like 2017, I did a little dabbling in like a keto slash paleo slash bulletproof. I don't know what it would count as these days because back then it was just like don't eat bread and try getting more like healthy fats. But that's how I came to learn that grass fed butter, Kerrygold, is really, really good. And like when I buy a grass fed ribeye, even though it costs like 3 times as much from Sprouts, the fat tasted really good and it wasn't something that I wanted to discard and it could taste really good. And I guess the most disappointing part of this cultural shift where we see like TikToks of guys making steak and eggs on a cutting board instead of a plate is that I don't really hear much about animal welfare when I did in 2017, where it's just like respect the animal and do what you can for the animal welfare. And like, yeah, it's really cool and manly to eat a bunch of meat, but it's even better to like respect the animal that you killed.
I mean, I would love to see more of that. I agree that it is kind of disappointing to see a little bit of dissonance there from the like keto carnivore creators out there who are, eating steak with their hands off a cutting board, like you said. It would be nice if, in part, and talking about like, oh, I buy this grass raised, grass finished beef because it tastes better and is better for me. I think, including the welfare part of that certainly doesn't take anything away from the current messaging and only adds to it. So, maybe that's me being vegetarian pilled here, but yeah, of course I would love to see more of that.
And you do pick the stories that we talk about on the show. So before I make any promises, did our recent sponsor, which raises meat, have anything to do with your selection of this story?
Not exactly, though I did find this interesting because of how many comments I saw pointing out that $42 spatchcock chicken.
Right. That's kind of exactly where I was leading to. So you called me out on that one. Yeah, I don't think my opinion has anything to do with the sponsor. Like they have no idea that we're reporting on this show and that we're potentially talking about them, or now, yeah, realistically talking about them. But yeah, it turns out that like a humanely pasture raised chicken shipped directly to your doorstep is like $40 and not $5 for a rotisserie fryer that's already warming in a bay in the grocery store. And so I don't know, it's kind of not that well thought out of a worldview, but I guess in my perfect world, anyone can eat meat if they want to, but it is expensive enough to account for all of the externalities. Like I think that we subsidize a lot of meat's true costs by passing them around, and the consumer doesn't have to realize what something like that actually costs. And unfortunately, it's like the cheap, affordable, universal protein that's famously expensive right now, and that's eggs. I wish people really like respected a chicken enough to be like, there's something wrong when I can get an entire one for $5.
Yeah, I agree. Where I live now, there is a lot of farming, in particular, a lot of like animal farming, dairy and chickens and things like that. And compared to where I lived previously, it's such a stark contrast to see that it's very normal for people here to pay $4 to $6 for a dozen eggs. And when egg prices were starting to raise around here, people's like eggs, buying from people on the side of the road or local farmers markets remained cheaper and still remain cheaper than all of these mass-produced eggs at the grocery store. I think people just don't have a very accurate idea of how much these things cost.
I guess if I can't convince anybody on the premise of caring for the animal, I do earnestly believe that the taste of like humanely raised meat is better. And so, I can't really buy grocery store bacon anymore because it just tastes like salt and not many spices, and there's not much meat on it. It's mostly just like slabs of fat. And I see people comparing, they complain about strawberries from the grocery store too, where it's like, oh, look, here's my 99-cent per pound strawberries. And when I cut through them, they're white on them in the middle. And isn't that so disappointing? Like American strawberries are so bad. It's like, well, or you could buy like the nicer strawberries, even if it's like the organic ones from the grocery store or the regular ones from the farmer's market. Like, it's kind of difficult to empathize with this argument that's like, I should be able to afford something as cheaply as possible, and it should also be as high quality as like the pastoral image that I have in my head of days gone.
I think that's such a great point that you bring up with the strawberries, because I think that especially as we move into summer where people are going to their local farmers markets more maybe and seeing all this produce where they're like, oh my God, this is 3-4 times as much as the grocery store. It really just shows how disconnected we are from our food systems these days, where, we think that a pint of strawberries should be $1.99. And you go to the farmer's market and I can pay $12, which sounds crazy for a little bucket of strawberries, but they're the most wonderful strawberries I've ever had. They taste like candy. And I can only imagine how much that must apply to something like meat because I don't have the experience of eating that to understand that. But with something like that where you are raising an animal from birth to butchering, I imagine that cost difference must have such a huge impact.
It's kind of a difficult argument to make right now, especially with inflation potentially getting even more difficult, because I understand the sentiment from consumers who are just like, what do you mean peanut butter costs this much? And now there's a giant hole or a giant hump in the bottom of the container so that I get 10 ounces instead of 16. And it's just like, you kind of have to decide whether you want to keep paying the same prices or keep getting the same quality, because there seems to be this internal disagreement in people, at least online, that they want to have both, and it's just not going to happen right now.
1 in 4 Gen Z and millennial diners say they often bring their own condiments to restaurants, subverting dining norms and signaling taste changes in younger generations. Growing up in the age of hyper-customizable, fast casual offerings, some younger consumers feel that restaurants just don't match their taste preferences, so they bring their own accoutrements to enhance their meals. Reactions to this behavior range from amusement to embarrassment, with some people feeling that it is in poor taste and others proudly toting around a small bodega ready for whatever lunch throws at them.
Can you believe that the time that we reported on the Velveeta to-go packets, that they would actually be on the bleeding edge? They're winning this trend right now. They made the right move.
Seriously, one of these days we're gonna see someone whipping out the Velveeta packet in a Noodles and Company or whatever.
I guess the one condiment that does make sense, at least the most sense, is hot sauce, because of how hyper-specific the flavor of hot sauce can be. Like if you dial in the herbaceousness and the acidity and the heat of a specific hot sauce, there's no way you're going to rely on somebody else carrying that, especially if what you land on as your favorite to be like some kind of boutique brand that you don't see everywhere else.
Yeah, definitely. And this article that I got this from definitely focuses on hot sauce as the main point of that. But I'll be honest here, I've been this person before. It's not always hot sauce either. A few years ago, I remember there was this Italian restaurant that my friends and I liked to go to. But for whatever reason, they never had like Parmesan that they would come and like grate at the table for anyone.
Oh, no.
And one time I did bring a Ziploc baggie full of Parmesan Reggiano and surprised my buddies with it. And it was very well received. It was very silly. I can't say that that's something I would be doing on a regular basis, and
Yeah,
certainly
right.
not
Yeah,
something
right.
I would be doing.
You are never beating the rodent allegation.
I didn't. Oh man, I'm screwing myself with this. Cut this out, Derek. No.
I was going to ask what would be in your dining bandolier, but I think it would just be 5 different cheeses on the belt.
No, I had it prepared, and there's not a single dairy product present.
Yeah.
But yeah, I certainly wouldn't do that in like a fine dining restaurant. You know, if you are going out and paying for a high quality meal and you feel like you have to bring items to put on your food in order to enjoy it, maybe just go to a different restaurant to begin with. But what is in your sauce bandolier?
Well, it's not even realistic because it would have to be like freshly made ranch, which isn't going to hold well. It's the ranch that you find at a place that's like a shelf stable isn't as good. Some kind of salsa verde or chimichurri, and then like a Calabrian chili paste or spread or puree. But the ranch is really illustrative of the point in that, like, you know, when I go to Wingstop, I know that they're going to have good ranch, and that's part of the appeal of going there. Like if you go to a place that has trash condiments or doesn't serve what you like, I don't feel the need. Like there's plenty of people vying for my dollar to have me go eat there, and I'd rather go eat at a place that serves what I like. The only other condiment I can think of that like achieves this sort of like it's so good that you'd want to take it everywhere is Whataburger's spicy ketchup. They did a really good job of offering a ketchup that is tailored to their audience's needs, and so now they sell Whataburger spicy ketchup that you can have in your house. I don't think they sell little packets that you can take to restaurants, but it's like your aim should be to make a product so good that people want to put their food on everything.
Yeah, exactly. I understand like maybe having something in like your car in your glove box or something, or you know, you have leftover hot sauce packets from Taco Bell and you spice up a kind of crappy burrito from somewhere else or something. But I can't imagine pulling out like a slew of items in the middle of a restaurant. If I had to pick them for myself, though, I would agree with you. Calabrian chili would definitely be in mine, and the other two would probably be Toom and Fly by Jing chili crisp.
I only wish my now deceased grandfather was here to see this trend, because I think I've mentioned it on this show. He was off to oft too. He would oft walk around with like a little jalapeno in his jacket pocket in case they didn't have any or the food wasn't spicy enough. And so if you're watching this, or if you're watching, I don't know where he's at. Never mind. Cut this out. We're done with this story.
I had that in mind when I picked this. I was hoping you might bring that
Really?
up again.
Okay.
Yeah, because this story is mainly focusing on like Gen Z and millennials, but this is in your blood.
Oh yeah, no, this is geezer coded, and I live for that. I live for any trend that is more like old man style. Like, oh, I need to have exactly the type of condiment that I want. In terms of portable food product that I like the least, it's the little soy sauce packets that come with like to-go sushi. I have plenty of soy sauce at home, and every time I order sushi, I say, please don't put any soy sauce packets in there. And every time they do. So I have an ever-growing mound of soy sauce packets in a junk drawer in my kitchen because I just can't bring myself to throw them away. And I just realized I'm a hoarder. Keep listening. We'll be right back. Promotional consideration for Eater's Digest is furnished by Porter Road. Porter Road takes pasture-raised beef, pork, and chicken, butchers it by hand, then delivers it straight to your door. It's all free of antibiotics, hormones, and GMOs, and their beef is dry-aged. I know what most people are probably thinking. How much better can meat really be? If I had to pick just a couple cheaper yet illustrative cuts, it would have to be their hot dogs and their whole spatchcocked chicken. A dry-aged, high-quality hot dog is going to change the way you look at wieners, guaranteed. And Porter Road's pasture-raised, spatchcocked chicken is the only chicken I've cooked where, after it's out of the oven, I can visibly see the juices flowing around underneath the skin. Humanely raised meat tastes better, and I feel better eating it. Use code SHAQ15 at checkout for 15% off your first order. That's SHAQ15 at checkout.
An NBC News investigation revealed that the FDA failed to publicly disclose a significant E. coli outbreak in November 2024 linked to contaminated lettuce, which resulted in 88 illnesses and 1 death. Despite identifying the source, the FDA closed the case without informing the public, disclosing the producer, or detailing affected retailers, justifying the silence by claiming that contaminated lettuce was no longer in circulation when the cause was discovered. Experts argue that this lack of transparency undermines public health, as heightened consumer awareness can prevent further illness and aid in tracing outbreaks.
Is failed the right word? You said the FDA failed to publicly disclose, but did they just not want to?
That's correct. I admit to using sensationalized language here in my summary. But yes, something that I found really interesting. Oh my God, I'm shaking the table again. I'm so sorry, everybody. Something I found very interesting in this is that the FDA is under no legal obligation to disclose these details to us. Which, given everything we've covered on this show, I feel like I shouldn't be surprised by, but I am. And they had all of this information, but the excuse of like, oh, this is out of circulation now, so we don't need to tell anyone, it's not justifiable. I understand not wanting to create chaos and get people worked up about something, but 88 people sick and 1 dead is not insignificant.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're going to have the take that the audience wants to hear, because I can always tell when I'm coming up with like the most brain dead one. But, I, especially since starting the show, I never find myself wanting to know more about all the food recalls and outbreaks since there's so many of them. A lot of them not entirely actionable because it's just like, oh, all the boar's head meat that was sold in the past month, something like that, where it's just like, well, I hope I didn't eat any. And, I just hear so many of them that if the FDA says, hey, don't worry about this one, I'm like, you got it, Chief. I don't have to worry about that one. That's fine by me.
I respect that. I think if I can't see it, it can't hurt me is a good way of going about that, at least for your sanity, your mental health. But I think that we in the content that we consume for this show are much more aware of this stuff than the average person. When I talk to my friends and stuff about this, nobody knows about all these recalls, except for like the ones that are getting really big and reported on, like the Boar's Head one that you just talked about. There was a massive like butter recall a little while ago for supposed fecal matter in them. I didn't talk about that on here because I know some people watch the show while they eat lunch, and maybe we don't need to bring that up any more than necessary. But I think a lot of these things are not things that other people see, and if it's escalating to the point that somebody has died, I think that it's reasonable for the public to want to know about it.
Okay, what if I take your point of view and I justify mine by saying, if the organization has a finite amount of energy to expend reaching people, shouldn't they funnel as much of that effort as they can into the ones that they deem the most important so that the most dangerous ones do actually reach these people, and the one like this lettuce story that's deemed like not so important or like open and shut, they could kind of just say, don't worry about that one. Let's focus on like making sure people understand not to eat the doo-doo butter.
I get what you're saying there, but how much effort does it really take to inform the public about something like this? How much time and energy does it really take to release a statement to the media talking about, hey, don't eat this brand of lettuce, you're gonna poop yourself and die? But I did read a rather long article detailing some of the people that got sick from this E. coli outbreak. Some of them were very young children who were in the hospital for a long time. Just some really, really sad and preventable stuff happening. And I understand what you're saying about this maybe not being the worst or most high profile case to talk about, but I think that we already have so many people that feel distrustful of our food systems and the way that the government interacts in them, that this just makes people feel even more distrust that one simple statement could eliminate.
That's true. And I don't feel too strongly about my point of view on this. I'm just trying to get ahead of some comments.
Trying to rile me up.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the thing that you should take away from this, dear viewer, is that like the obligation, or I guess the non-obligation to report is I don't want to say fun fact, so I'll say fascinating fact, but I kind of want to just leave it at there, because beyond that, what is the point? Like, get scared. I think that if we make media that is just like scaring people, I think that's a net negative on society at large. I think what's the other message could be like, don't trust the government. I guess maybe that is a good message, but you would have to do it in a way that's like agnostic of political power shifts, because there's this moment where it's just like, well, when this guy's ahead of the FDA, we want to trust him, and when this guy's the head of the FDA, we don't want to trust him. So I don't know. If I try to sit down and think of my most like relevant and applicable reaction to this, I might be able to get something if I like sat and wrote for an hour, and that's why I don't post so many videos on like my main or second channels, but that's my main production bottleneck. So in the absence of that, that's my real reaction, is like, isn't it interesting that they don't have to report?
Well, I have some interesting things for you that so far have not been recalled. Fingers crossed. Four Sigmatic and The Last of Us created a high caffeine coffee featuring cordyceps mushrooms. Mary Ruth's and Liquid Death created a nighttime multi-mineral together. And we also have Sauterelle, I did not look up the pronunciation, I should have. Grasshopper-based broth.
Sauterelle grasshopper broth, I did look it up, and what's unfortunate is that their branding is just so incredibly weak. The packaging looks lame, the website looks lame, the way that they present the product as a value proposition is just unconvincing, and so I don't think that this is going to be something that's going to move people in the direction to making grasshopper broth.
Yeah, it does not look that appealing. I don't think the grasshopper broth is going to be that appealing even outside of the packaging. Every time I bring like a stupid bug-based product on this show, I know that the conversation is more or less going to go the same way of like, oh my God, they want us to eat the bugs. But I agree, their branding is so weak. The packaging almost looks like it should be like a tea brand. And they have this like scrolling text across the website that says big broth energy. And I just feel like that's not necessary here.
I think that putting it in the little tea bag is an interesting value proposition, because it's like the only people who make concentrated broth is like better than bouillon or bouillon cubes. Bouillon cubes are known to not be that good. Better than bouillon is good, but you have to refrigerate it, and it's in a paste. So like the tea bag does seem like a really interesting way to be like, look, you can have broth ready to go for your rice or sofrito or risotto or whatever you need broth for, or just drinking straight up if you're like a bone broth drinker, but as easily as tea. And so that was their strongest point, but everything around it just isn't very good.
I want to see them collab with Better Than Bouillon. I want to see like a grasshopper paste. I think that that's going to be the way to go.
That could be really interesting. I think you're onto something. You're getting really good at this product development stuff.
There we go. Somebody hire me. I'll make the most disgusting thing you've ever heard of, grasshopper paste.
Well, the Four Sigmatic Last of Us Cordyceps mushroom coffee, I have the least to say about. Interesting product. I think they already sold Cordyceps products. I think that it's just an interesting tie-in to be like, hey, look, this mushroom from the TV show is real and you can buy it and try it, and isn't that cool?
Yeah, I thought that it was very cute. I admittedly am so tired of hearing about mushroom coffee. I've had it. It's not very good. It all just kind of tastes like earthy and bitter. Um, and I get that the functional mushrooms are really big and trendy and have been for a few years now. Um, I think as a product itself, it's kind of weak, but I think that the tie-in is very cute. I'm honestly surprised that they didn't do this like around season 1. It feels just like a natural collaboration to me. So I like that, but I even as a fan of both coffee and The Last of Us, I would not purchase it.
Sure. And speaking of parasitic relationships, like the one between the cordyceps and the host/zombie, I'm working on my segues here. The Liquid Death, Mary Ruth's collab, like Liquid Death is definitely the parasite in this relationship. It's a product that Mary Ruth's already sold, the nighttime mineral. And it was already in a flavor called Coconut Dream. And so really the Liquid Death is bringing very little to this collaboration. It's the same flavor. They did just rename it to Coconut Scream, but then the copy on the website is like, don't be bothered, you will not scream, you won't have nightmares. So I don't know, it's just very weak, and I wonder if they've just pivoted into a new phase for their brand where they're relying on their existing superfans instead of trying to convince more people to care about the packaging of their water or the branding behind it.
Yeah, this kind of reminded me a little bit of the Red Clay and Tresemme collab that we talked about last week, where it's just an existing product with a new label slapped on it. I don't know if this one is higher priced at all, like the way the Tresemme one was, but it's just a bizarre collab to me, just like the Tresemme. These are two brands that have nothing to do with each other. If you're not a Liquid Death fan and you see like a supplement multi-mineral for sale with the word death in it, you're probably not going to feel super compelled to buy that. It doesn't have a healthy connotation to it. It's just bizarre to me. I think for a while, Liquid Death really had their products and their branding down, but the last couple things we've heard about them, the flopped soda line, the multi-mineral, they're really losing.
Thank you for calling something a flop just because I didn't like it. That's very I like that. A good example would be, okay, Barkley, my brand, makes pottery and ceramics, but I wanted to diversify some of the products. And it's like, if pottery is the dot, you need multiple dots to potentially make a line, right? Like, what is it that connects people to my brand? And I tried doing like DIY pottery kits, thinking pottery was going to be the two dots that make a line. That wasn't true. That was an utter failure of a product. I collaborated with a brand called Knife and Plus, which is in the Northwest somewhere, and he hand makes his own like wooden epoxy magnetic knife holders. Similar to our discussion about meat, like this artisanal craft handmade thing costs a lot of money. So it's like $200 and that's not even a high margin item, to make this thing and sell it to the customer. That hasn't done well either. But I understand why a brand might say like, okay, we're known for our water, but like, what are the dots that make the line? Is it soda where it's sweetened? Is it supplemental or functional products? And instead of saying like, oh, you can go to liquiddeath.com to also buy Mary Ruth products, which some people do. Porter Road does that. Like, you can buy products from Mizzen or Burlap and Barrel or Sitka Salmon from Porter Road because it's like, hey, you have the same values as us. I think there's a lot of overlap with our consumers. Let's just sell your product in our storefront and everybody wins. You go one step further by doing a collab, even though the collab is like barely changing the name of the flavor and putting your logo on the label. Like, I totally understand. I guess the best example of that would be Barkley as well. We sell Nork dinnerware, and you can buy that product directly from Nork, except all I changed was in the like 24 or 36 piece dinnerware set, I changed the knife to be a slightly sharper like dinner knife instead of a butter knife because I felt like it would be more applicable. And so you can only get that collection of products from Barkley, even though it's the same exact price as MSRP. And now this is starting to sound like an ad, but I say all that to just justify that like sometimes collabs aren't always about like making a revolutionary, tweetable, shareable product. And sometimes it's more about like just doing a little exploration to what people want. And I guess we'll see, like, will the Liquid Death consumer base want more functional products? And hopefully not, because I'm tired of them.
I think that you make a good comparison with some of the Barkley collabs that you've done, but I think the difference there is at least in changing that one piece that comes with it, the knife, you're at least you're making a change, you're reinventing it in a way that is specific to your brand. With this and with the Tresemme Hot Honey one, it's just slapping a new label on there. It feels like slop. It's slop product.
Yeah, I guess so. But I'm no better than a slop peddler at times. Anyway, remember to tune into my weekly show. Eater's Digest is published every Friday on YouTube, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. You can also get a text-based version delivered to your email every Friday at patreon.com/shack.